Today, I write another page in Jesus' diary, my diary. The sky looked the same. Blue, vast, silent. But silence doesn't always mean peace. Some silences carry storms you can't see. Today, I felt one of them moving through me. It wasn't thunder that shook my bones, it was memory. And not the memory of Judas. Not the kiss. Not the betrayal the world knows. But something far quieter. Something deeper. Something no one ever saw. There are pains that scream, and there are pains that whisper. But the ones that linger are the ones no one notices. Today, I remember the moments after the betrayal, after the crowd, after the kiss that broke the timeline of heaven. I sat in silence, and in that silence, I bled in places that had no wound. I wasn't broken by a sword. I was broken by the realization that some hearts would never understand what I came to give. It wasn't Judas that hurt the most. It was those I loved who still couldn't see. It was the ones I held who still doubted. It was the weight of being close but still invisible. And that pain pierced deeper than the nails ever would. Not all wounds bleed. Some echo. Some sit beneath the surface and hum quietly like sorrow waiting to bloom. And today, I heard that hum in my soul. If this whisper of pain reaches you, if something inside you recognizes this ache, then let your light be a silent echo of I understand. Because sometimes clicking isn't just an action. It's a prayer, a way of saying, I feel this too, and I'm still here. The afternoon was quiet, but not peaceful. The air was dry, brushing against my skin like parchment worn from too many prayers. The sun stood high, casting long shadows that stretched like memories across the ground. Each footstep echoed in the dust, as if even the earth remembered what had happened here and chose not to forget. There were people around me. Some whispered my name, some averted their eyes, and others stared too long, as if hoping to see in me a reason to believe, or a reason to turn away. But I wasn't searching their faces. I was listening to their hearts, and in many of them, I heard silence, not the sacred kind, but the kind that hides behind masks of faith. The streets were narrow, lined with the scent of burnt bread and sweat-soaked cloaks. Children played barefoot in alleyways, their laughter carrying a kind of hope that seemed too loud for a day like this. A day where my soul felt heavy with something invisible. Not prophecy, not miracles, but wait. Inside me, there was a stillness, but not of rest. It was the kind of stillness that comes before surrender. The kind that makes you feel every heartbeat as a countdown. And the cross, though distant, stood somewhere behind the veil of time, waiting like an old friend I never wanted to see again. But what hurt most wasn't its presence. It was the absence of the ones I thought would still be standing with me. The wind passed, carrying the faint sound of someone calling my name. But the voice didn't reach me. Not fully, because in that moment, I wasn't in the crowd. I was inside my own ache. And the ache was echoing with the pain that no one saw. He wasn't loud. He didn't accuse me. He didn't ask for healing or signs or truth. He simply stood there, pressed against the shadows of a stone wall, invisible to the noise but not to me. His eyes never lifted, but I felt them, like a storm held behind a shut window, threatening to break through. His shoulders were curved forward, not in shame, but in exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion only known by those who carry pain. In silence, I moved closer, not out of command, but because something in me was pulled, like gravity calling the soul. As I stepped toward him, I realized this man didn't fear me. He feared being seen, not his face, but his wounds. The ones no one ever touched, the ones no one ever asked about. And in that moment, I didn't see a stranger. I saw a mirror, because what lived in his silence was the same thing I carried in mine. He looked up, just once, and his eyes met mine with a question he didn't have the courage to ask. Will you leave me too? But I knew that pain. I knew what it was to be surrounded by many and still feel unseen. I knew what it was to be known for what I did, but not for who I carried. And so I didn't speak. I just sat beside him. The world moved on. But for a moment, it was just two suns, one broken by the world, and one broken for it. Because not all betrayal comes with a kiss. Some comes with silence. And that silence can feel like being crucified without a cross. I stayed there beside him. No words, no miracles, just presence. And as the sun shifted behind the clouds, I felt something rise in me. Not anger, not sorrow, but the weight of understanding. The weight of how many live like this, with pain no one names, with wounds too spiritual to be seen, with betrayals not shouted, but swallowed. He didn't confess. He didn't need to. The way his hands trembled as he covered his face, the way his chest rose with uneven breath, it told me everything. And maybe it told me something about myself too. Because as I watched him fall to his knees, I remembered what it felt like to be surrounded by people and still feel utterly alone, to speak truth and be met with silence, to give love and feel like it evaporated in the noise. And I realized I wasn't grieving Judas. I was grieving every soul that would walk away, not with a betrayal, but with apathy. Those who wouldn't hate me, but wouldn't stay either. The ones who'd look me in the eyes and still choose to forget me. That was the pain no one ever saw. Not the cross, not the crown, but the ache of offering your heart and watching it be overlooked. I opened my hand, placed it gently on the man's shoulder, and whispered what I needed to believe too. You are not unseen. And as he began to weep, I did too, because his tears weren't just his. They were mine, and they were yours. If you've ever felt this kind of quiet pain, this invisible ache, this page was written for you. Subscribe to this journey, not just to follow stories, but to find pieces of yourself in every silence I once carried. There are more pages, and some of them hold your name. That day, I learned something I had not spoken before, something not written in scrolls, something not carved in stone, but carved in tears. I learned that pain doesn't always come with a scream. Sometimes it comes with a glance, a hesitation, a quiet departure no one notices but your soul. I was not wounded that day by a sword or a crown of thorns. I was wounded by absence, by the sound of hearts turning away slowly, not out of anger, but indifference. And I realized betrayal doesn't always wear the face of an enemy. Sometimes it looks like silence from those you love most. The kind of silence that doesn't attack. It simply disappears. But in that ache, I saw something deeper. I saw that love, to be real, must still choose to remain, even when no one else sees, even when your gift is rejected, even when your presence is taken for granted. Love that requires applause isn't love. Love that needs to be seen to stay isn't love. But love that chooses, even when unseen, that's divine. And so I stayed. I stayed not because I was understood, but because I understood. That man didn't need a miracle. He needed someone who wouldn't leave. And neither do you. That was the revelation. That healing doesn't always look like light parting the clouds. Sometimes healing is just knowing you're still worth staying for. And I did. Not because you praised me, but because I saw your ache before you ever gave a name. Some days love is loud, but that day love was quiet, and it stayed. Today, I didn't multiply bread. I didn't walk on water. I didn't open blind eyes or raise the dead. Today, I sat beside a man whose soul was breaking in silence. And maybe so is mine, because pain doesn't always knock loudly. Sometimes it waits, quietly, in the corners of the heart that no one visits. And today, I visited mine, not the holy parts, not the confident ones, but the places where even I felt the ache of being unseen. I always knew the cross would hurt, but I never expected that the deeper wound would come from those who simply looked away. And so I wrote today, not with ink, but with breath, with stillness, with presence. I stayed, even when I didn't feel held, even when the world didn't notice, even when love was quiet. And I wondered, how many walk the same path? How many people cry behind closed hearts? How many scream in silence? How many ache with a grief that no one stops to see? So now I turn this page outward and place in your hands, because maybe this story isn't just mine. Maybe it's yours too. So tell me, what pain have you been carrying that no one ever saw? What part of your heart did you bury in silence? Thinking no one would care? This page wasn't meant to fix it, only to whisper, "You're not the only one." I said nothing. I simply let that moment become a word. In my Jesus diary, if this page found a quiet place in your heart, don't let it stop here. There's someone else, somewhere, carrying pain no one ever saw. Share this with them. Let this whisper reach the places words have been too afraid to enter. Sometimes, one story opens the door for another soul to breathe again. And if you feel something stirring in you now, like an echo you can't quite explain, stay close. The video appearing on your screen right now, it isn't random. It's another page, one you might need, one that might speak what you haven't yet dared to say. Let it meet you where the silence lives. Let it remind you, you're not walking alone. This journey is just beginning, and every next word has your name woven into it.